Okay, hello there. Hello there, and if you're catching this on YouTube or Facebook, wherever, podcast, welcome. This is a wonderful video with Candace Craw-Goldman on quantum healing, beyond quantum healing. If you want to learn quantum healing, please visit the website quantumhealers.com and use the referral code of Debbie, that's Debbie, H10, and save 10%. And please visit my website for more information about things that I offer, debbiehazelton.com. And please like, subscribe, share, all those good things, and a lot more is on the way. So thank you very much for tuning in. I am thrilled to be doing this with you. And it's definitely, I mean, what you wrote was so sweet, but I feel the same way. It was a year ago that I first learned of you and heard you on with Allison. Maybe you invited her to your YouTube channel at the time. So here we are. This is a different event that we're talking about today. This is the event that you created in terms of Dolores, right?
Oh, absolutely. So, yeah, when I think about Worldwide Regression Day or Worldwide Regression Week, excuse me, I really have to, I'm going to take a drink of water. I really have to laugh because it was just last year, and it wasn't very long before Dolores's birthday, April 15th. And here, in America anyway, April 15th has this connotation that's not a really great one. It's tax day. It's when taxes are due. And that's been Dolores's birthday. It's been easy for me to remember. And I miss Dolores so much. I still feel like I communicate with her in dreams and in other ways and in sessions, but I miss her very much. She was a wonderful woman. And her birthday was coming up, and I was thinking about that. And I was thinking, well, what would be a great way to sort of note that it's her birthday? Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, too bad there isn't something like a Worldwide Regression Day. Mm-hmm. And it didn't take many more minutes after having that thought that I just thought, okay, and why not? Why can't there be? And why can't I just say that it is and just act as if it is and create some things, some events, and make it Worldwide Regression Day to celebrate and to make a tribute not only to Dolores, but to all of those other consciousness explorers out there who learned about human realities and different ways of being and different forms of life out there by regression therapy. So, boom, Worldwide Regression Day, April 15th. And then, so the second year, coming up on it, I started thinking, well, one day just isn't enough. There's so many people who have so many things to say. So we made it Worldwide Regression Week. And since April 15th is on a Monday, it sort of kicks it off. And so here we go.
I love it. And, I'm thinking of all the different formats for this show, assuming that I would put a little lead on this, introducing you, because I didn't in this, but we are talking with Candace Craw-Goldman, because I may not be able to edit the video file, but everyone is going to know from the description and other things there that it's you. And I'm so excited that you're doing this, because one of the reasons I wanted to do this and to have this as part of Worldwide Regression Week, boy, that's a tongue twister, is even though we're real excited and grateful for Dolores and all of her contributions, I want us to really shine the starlight on you, because you, dear Candace, are the one who has really worked to bring so much of this about quantum healing forward, but particularly BQH, beyond quantum healing. And I like to know more about, I'd like us to know more about you and what inspired you along the way, and who is Candace in all this?
Oh, well, thank you so much for that. Very much. Okay, so me. Well, I was speaking with some other healers yesterday, and we were all talking about how did we even get in this to begin with? And most of us have a similar story. My story starts with needing healing and answers for myself. I was in my 40s. I'd had a string of health issues, none of them terminal, none of them serious or severe, but all of them chronic, never ending, continuing with no answers. I had headaches, I had TMJ, I had pelvic issues, I was bedridden twice with pregnancies. I had kidney stones, I had fibromyalgia, just these sorts of things kept coming up and coming up and coming up and coming up. And interestingly enough, I actually started calling this very mysterious way of living in this human body my left disease. And what do I mean by that? Everything was on the left side, lost my hearing on my left side, TMJ was on the left side, everything was on the left side. And even when I see myself in videos like this, my left and right face are completely different. My smile goes up on one side. I think my right side, it goes down a little on my left side. I've always noticed that the left side of my body was different than the right. Came to, through some amazing, miraculous events, actually, to take Dolores's class in 2008, just to figure out stuff myself, what's going on with me, and following my own guidance. And I show up there just knowing in every bone of my body that this was going to be the answer for me and how I was going to look at my life from here on out, especially, I said to myself, sitting in her class, especially if she chooses me to be her regression subject. This was a class of about 30. There was a class of about 30, and she was taking names. And I set it up. I thought it was a test of God. I set it up and said in my head, I'm not putting my name on that list. I am not. And if she chooses me anyway, then I know for an absolute fact all of these other things are set up and the things that I'm supposed to do. And sure enough, she set that list down that had like 25 of the 30 names in the class. She walked over to me and said, would you be the subject for, the regression in the class? And I burst out crying. I was following my intuition. So many other things came to bring me there. And I just knew everything was going to change. It already had in the weeks and days prior. But having that moment sealed the deal for me. And I knew I wanted to do this work. But how I took it forward was this. I had no background in any of this stuff. None. I was a stay-at-home mom, an artist and photographer when I wanted to be. Otherwise, I, raised my kids. I rode horses. I had animals. I dealt with my medical issues, my chronic pains and stuff. I didn't have a real career other than freelance artist and photographer. I did that off and on when I felt like it, but it wasn't really anything that, I did 9 to 5 or regularly for many years. So I had no background even of that, right?
How did you find Dolores? How did you find?
Oh gosh, that's such a story. I'm happy to tell a story. Do we have a time limit? No, seriously, it's a great story if you want to hear it.
We have close to an hour.
Okay.
It's up to you.
I'm happy to tell a story because the story is magical. It's really, really magical. So there I was, an artist and photographer. We were living in Austin, Texas. And I had been doing lots of photography with horses and cowboys and singers and, ranch style rodeos and other things like that. And I was getting ready to shoot an album cover, the third album cover for a singer-songwriter of mine. And it was going to be a really big deal for me. This was a really big deal. I was hiring a small crew, some extra lights. It took 8 months of planning and preparation to get this one day of shooting figured out with everyone's schedules and all the different things. We were going to have an old car there. There was a certain place. I mean, it was a big deal to me. And we got to the morning where that day finally was there. And I couldn't get out of bed because of chronic pain. I could not get out of bed. And, you know, I did the thing that you imagine you might do at the time. And, you know, poor me, but I really felt like, you know, imagine me, Debbie, because I'm putting the L on my forehead. Loser. I just felt like such a loser. I felt like I was going to let all these people down. I had to make the phone calls saying, I can't get out of bed, let alone lift up a camera. We have to cancel. So I laid there in bed feeling, this was, I guess, what you might think of as the dark night of the soul. Mentally, I wasn't depressed. I was still a very upbeat person who would do stuff, push through the pain. But I came to a point that day where I simply didn't know what else there was to do. The week prior, I had talked to my doctor, and I didn't want to take any more of the drugs. They not only didn't work, they backfired. They were horrible. And I loved my doctor, but I said, you know, we basically decided to fire each other, at least for that part of, you know, my problem, this unrelenting chronic pain. And so I just laid in bed, and I thought, you know, I never memorized, and there were some prayers and some poems I'd never memorized. I'd never memorized some of the Catholic prayers that I'd heard about, some of the other things I looked into, and I just laid in bed basically, and I said, okay, I need to do something differently. What is it that I'm supposed to do? Now, before that time, I think my focus was help me, help me, help me, help me, help me, help me. That day, something changed. I said, okay, what now? Now what? What am I supposed to do? I've tried everything I can think of to try, every avenue. What am I supposed to do? Well, that changed everything. The way I asked the question changed everything. In the middle of all of this sort of prayer and meditation and focusing on what am I supposed to do, I had a complete out-of-body experience, a very mystical experience where I found myself in a beautiful field. The field where we lived at the time near a river. I'm just standing there in the beautiful golden grass, and in front of me in a semicircle there were light beings, about 5 of them. The center being stood up, and I couldn't see any figures, but they were humanoid looking. And this being reached out a hand with a piece of paper on it, Debbie, a piece of paper that I took and I looked at, and it was a list. There was a list, and there was 3 things on it. And number 1 said, go see your doctor, tell him you're tired. Number 2 said, volunteer for Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep, which is an organization that photographers belong to take photographs of babies in hospitals who are either born still or coming off life support, etc. Did beautiful work that I knew about, but didn't think I was qualified to do. Number 3 was go have a past life regression. And I woke up from that kind of stunned. So I had my list of things to do, right? So I went straight to the computer. I'm going to go down the list. Step 1, call your doctor, tell him you're tired. I just fired my doctor. He just fired me, but I'm like, okay, fine, I'll do that. So I call it, and I'm like, well, and I know that doctor's name is Dr. Kravitz, a wonderful man down in Austin. Hi, Dr. Kravitz, if you ever happen to see this videotape, I talk about you all the time in this event. I call, and I know Dr. Kravitz, he's so popular, I was probably going to have to wait a couple weeks, right? So I get on the phone, and the woman says, you know, we have a cancellation for today at 11 o'clock. Can you make it? And I'm like, well, that's interesting. Yeah, I think I can make that. So I hang up the phone, and I'm like, wow. And then I think I'm going to go make some coffee because I was just kind of waking up. And I'm like, no, I'm going to click on Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep first. And I look at it and it says, wow, we have thousands of people, submitting to be volunteers here. Here's what you do. You fill out this little form. You submit some photos. You click on a website, and then you do not bother us for at least 6 to 8 weeks. It takes so long to go over this stuff. Don't call us, we'll call you. So I do all that, hit submit, and I'm like, okay, now it's time for coffee. I go into the kitchen, I make coffee, I come back to the computer because, I'm on number 3 now, right? Past life regression. And I go back to my computer, and in the time it took me to make coffee, I have a reply from Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep. And they're like, we never do this. I promise you we never do this, but we clicked on your email and we looked your stuff over. You're great. You're in. Call this woman. There you go. And I'm starting to go, wow, there's some creepy stuff going on here, some really crazy stuff going on here. And I'm at number 3 and I'm thinking, well, what am I going to do with number 3 when it's time for me to go to my doctor's appointment? So I'm like, okay. And I go to my doctor's appointment. I sit on the paper. You know how you do. I'm sitting on the paper waiting for Dr. Kravitz. Mm-hmm. He comes in and I look at him and he's like, so you're back? I'm like, yeah. And I'm thinking, how am I even going to tell him this? And my heart's beating like crazy, right? So I think, well, I don't know if they were angels or not, but I decided to call them angels. And I looked flat at him and I said, Dr. Kravitz, I had some angels tell me to come back and tell you I was tired. And he looked at me like this and he went, have we ever tested your vitamin B12 levels? I said, no. He said, I just had this guy in who has similar symptoms to you, and we found out his B12 levels are really low. And I'm like, well, there you go. That sent me on a path that helped me normalize my vitamin B12 levels. I'm heading home now, still kind of stunned about everything going on. I stop at the mailbox. I open up the mailbox before I even get home, and there's a package in there for me. And it was a surprise package. I hadn't asked for anything, and it was from a friend of mine who I was friendly with online. Open up the book, and it's A Convoluted Universe.
Oh, my God.
By Dolores Cannon. In there is a note that says, hey, I think she teaches this. If you want to go to Arkansas, it's not far from you. And I'm like, huh. And so I'm thinking, I'm in and I'm sitting there, I'm looking at this book, and I just feel like the whole world is sparkling with magic. I feel like I'm in a Disney movie or something, everything's going like this. And I get on the phone, I start to get on the phone right away, and I talk to the wonderful woman there. Her name's Joy. She's actually passed now. She's an angel too. Mm-hmm. And, I find out about the class. It's $500. Are you a helping person? I said, well, I have Reiki. I did learn Reiki, learning all of this. She says, you can come then if you're Reiki. And I hang up the phone. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, well, there's 2 things now that I need to somehow have that weekend covered. My elderly mother was staying with me. She needed care. My horses needed care. My kids were in high school. My daughter was graduating. There was band. There was baseball. There was all these events. Every weekend there was stuff. So I'm just sitting there and I'm thinking, and where am I going to get $500? The moment that I have this thought, where am I going to get $500? My mother comes into the room carrying a check. She's German, so I'm going to try to imitate her. She says, Candy, you never take any money from me. And I tell you, you must. You just must take this thing. You must take this money because it'll make me feel better. And you've been buying all these groceries and you must take this. And she handed me a check for $500. Right? And I am just reeling. So then I grab the calendar and I asked my daughter to come in to the room. This was a little bit later. Mm-hmm. I said, Lauren, I'm thinking about taking a trip over a weekend this summer, in this July. And she looked at me and she just started laughing. She goes, do you know how busy this summer is? I said, I know, but just bring your calendar. Let's compare notes. Just bring it. And she's looking, she goes, well, you're crazy. She goes to her room, gets her calendar. She comes in. She goes, I'm telling you, every week until September is full. There's only one weekend where nothing is going on. It was that weekend.
I love
And so as I'm coming up to go to Dolores's class, I just think that the world is going to turn on a dime that day.
it.
And I remember throwing my backpack in the truck, getting ready I look up at Orion's Belt. It was like 4:00 in the morning in Texas. I drive and I'm throwing, and the backpack is in midair. And I remember thinking, she's going to regress me. She's going to pick me as a student, demonstration person. And that's partly why this is all happening, which is why I did the test thing in her class.
Mm.
And then all of that happened with a fabulous result and a fabulous regression. And when it was all over, I basically said, Dolores, I'm going to need help because I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I've never done this kind of work before. There wasn't a support forum set up.
No.
And I kind of basically just bugged her because she said I could. She was like, just call the office. She'd say, I'll help you. So, I made a few calls to that office. And then I finally said, how about I set up a place where we can chat between us, the people who.
Goodness.
And she said, well, as long as you run it, she said. So that's how that started, right?
Wow.
And we did that all the way up until her death. And then shortly after her death, it became very apparent we needed to be independent from just the QHHT model and those who are teaching it after that. We were expanding our thinking. We were expanding our base. We opened up our arms to people who were doing similar work or work just like Reiki or life coaching or EFT or mediums or those kind of intuitive readings. So we opened up our arms. And that's how the community became more independent. And then it wasn't until last year that I felt called to actually put together my own course of Beyond Quantum Healing that it was inspired by Dolores herself, quite frankly, but does many things completely opposite of her official training and program that still exists today. You can still learn from the beautiful Dolores Cannon online if you want.
Right.
So that's my story, and here we are.
Love it. I love it. Now, what was this test? Did you have to do a test before she chose you to regress?
No, she, so it was back then it was just a 3-day class, and she had a notebook up on her desk. And I was sitting in the back, as I tend to do in these classes, even though I'm not shy about asking questions. I don't usually sit up front. For some reason, I like to sit by the door for a lot of reasons. And I was in my usual place in the back by the door. And I watched as people throughout the first couple of days would go put their name on that list. She would say, now, if you want to be considered, you need to put your name on this list. And I will choose a name from this list. So in my head, I was having an internal battle, and that was go put your name on the list versus it doesn't matter if you put your name on the list or not. If you trust enough that this is all supposed to work out, she's going to pick you anyway. It doesn't matter the list. And then the other side of me would say, but that's crazy. You got to put your name on the list to be considered. Why doesn't that qualify? And so I felt like I actually was like arguing with God a little bit, right? And so part of me was terrified, like lightning was going to strike me down if no matter what I did, right? So when I made sure that I didn't put my name on the list, and my roommate who was sitting right next to me, who desperately wanted to be regressed and had her name on the list, and Dolores said, well, and she walked down the row of tables, and she stood right in front of me, and she said, and she uses her little finger quotes, they told me the person to regress today is you. Would you agree to that? Right? Even though you didn't put your name on the list. And I just cried. I just went, bah, and cried. And there you have it.
So that was your first regression?
Yes, because what I started to do was show up for anything and everything that Dolores did in Arkansas, because it was about a 4.5-hour drive from here. And I went to her next year's course that was the next course. It was just a single day of us sitting around asking Dolores questions. And then I was able to bring a lot of information that I learned from her back to the support group that was online. And then that just kept growing and growing and growing and growing and growing until we kind of stepped up platforms. And then Dolores invited me to come to her live trainings in Arkansas to assist in her classes. Mm-hmm. So I did, every time she had a live class in Arkansas, I was there all the way up until her death in 2014. And that was an astonishing year in so many ways. Her final course in 2014, it was September of 2014, there was, I believe, 125 people in the auditorium, in the room. And the electricity, the energy, I think the train is beautiful that is coming through right now. Yes, it's putting a big exclamation point on this. There were many intuitives in the audience who have become my friends and practitioners since that time. And many of them knew, as I knew myself, but wasn't saying to anybody, this was going to be her last class. Mm-hmm. We just knew. And she wasn't ill. There wasn't anything that pointed to her subsequent death in just about a month after that course, but that in fact that's what happened. She passed just the next month.
Wow, that is amazing. Yeah, you just knew it. Well, and one of the things I love about BQH is it's very clear to me that you really have been listening to the voices of people as well as the voices of spirit guides. I mean, just the way you listened that day to go and find out about Dolores. But over the years, you have really been listening and putting out there a way for people to have all kinds of room to do what this work is.
Well, thank you. It occurred to me very early on, I'm often too early to the party, my husband says. But what I mean by that is very early on, even in 2008 and 2009, when I first got started, I realized how much learning was happening horizontally, how much learning we were getting from each other, the practitioners who did this work. It was very difficult to have FaceTime or interaction time with Dolores Cannon. She had a years-long waiting list to get in to see her for a session. She did her classes, she did her interviews, she did her touring. She was a very busy woman, being in her late 70s and then, up into her mid 80s before she passed. Even when I would go to assist her in her courses, some of the only face-to-face time I would have with her is walking back and forth between lunch or classes or afterwards or those kinds of things. I didn't get to sit down a lot with her, some meetings, sure, but a lot of the learning that took place was practitioners sharing notes. And I never, ever, ever forgot what it felt like to leave her class back in 2008, feeling like I needed a broader base or more support, more information, more experiences to draw upon, because I had none of my own. And so it's the horizontal support that I'm still so interested in. And I'm also very interested in dismantling this idea that the guru knows everything and the students really don't know anything. That sort of hierarchical thing doesn't sit well with me anymore. I find brand new practitioners able to assist clients in magnificent, beautiful ways. Experience is lovely. It helps the practitioner be more comfortable for sure. But, this isn't the old way of thinking when it comes to offering service to others. And the horizontal support and the horizontal lifting up of others has always been something that's been very near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, well, I really think that also goes along with some of the maybe more global or collective direction that many of us are feeling. And it's, it's people helping people working together. And so, yeah, and that is the climate that you set up in this course.
Yes, absolutely. One of the things that BQH basically says too is, who are you? Bring you into this modality when you're assisting others, and bring skills in that you might have. You might have been, let's say, a hairdresser for 20 years. Well, let me tell you what, some hairdressers have a lot of time kind of therapy talking, right? Back and forth. Bring that skill. Some people have come from the medical community. Bring that skill. Some people come from hypnosis backgrounds. Some people are highly intuitive. Bring all of yourself to these sessions because you do anyway. So to try to make some of your skills or life energy not participate in a session, to me, has always been, well, difficult to say the least. And so what I'm thinking as I'm taking this quantum healing into the future in the form of BQH is to look for all of those ways that you are unique and allow your client to connect with you, because that's one of the reasons they found you anyway, energetically. So that's why the sessions are kind of, they've really expanded in a lot of different ways. They're not a single procedural format. They're a lot more open. There's a lot more intuition going on, and they're wildly different depending on what two people come together to explore.
Fascinating. It kind of reminds me of early times when people shared person to person, oral, story to story. People passed down wisdom. People shared at a real grassroots level before we became so heavily service oriented.
You're projecting me an image, Debbie. See, this is where I follow my intuition. So if this is too woo-woo for some of you people listening, sorry. But as soon as you say that, I mean, I am sitting around a fire with you in some other life, and I see exactly where you are. I'm about at the 6 o'clock position. You're at about the 2 o'clock position, and I'm looking at you, and I'm feeling, so I've already felt connected with many of the practitioners in our community and on the forum. And I've always felt a deep connection with you as well. And that sort of circular sharing, that horizontal sharing moment just kind of surfaced for me as what I would like to think as a past life memory that just came up because we're sitting here talking together.
I love it. Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. I love it. Well, and I felt that connection right away. And I just knew from when I called you, I'm like, I want in. I want in. And, I mean, my background, humanistic psych, I was always looking for, and the metaphysical and all those kinds of things, and going places, moving. When I went to graduate school, moving to a little town in Georgia that had West Georgia College at the time, a little, what they said was a hole in the wall. And I just found myself there, studying humanistics. So, but what you have created here is just that safe space for people to be creative and to build. And yeah, and the forum, I mean, just how many practitioners do you have now for BQH?
Gosh, well, that's a good question. So many hundreds have signed on to take the course. Some are completely through it. Some are still working on it. I think I'll make an announcement once we pass 1,000, but we aren't there yet. But many hundreds have taken the course, and all are invited, of course, to participate with us in the support forum community.
So tell us some of the rudiments for people who don't know. How much is the course now?
The course is currently priced at $333. It's fully online. There's no time limit really to take the course. A lot of people are taking their time. We have it on a platform right now where variously will say, gosh, try to get it done in a year. And why are we saying that? Because I think we're going to move it off the platform. We're hoping to put the courses, the directory, and the forum all in a singular place, a single sign-on kind of place. Right now, we've cobbled it together because such an endeavor is very complex and takes a lot of resources and time to do. But many people are working on it, and a lot of people are calling about practitioners and are asking for references on. I spend a good number of hours every day on correspondence, telling people about the course, and or people who are looking for sessions, referring them on to people who can do them. And the online portion of the BQH option of being able to connect with a client, just like you and I are here on Zoom or by telephone, has really exploded. It's made this kind of work available to so many more clients and practitioners alike. And, I would be remiss if I didn't thank you, because you are, maybe you know this and maybe you don't, but you are an incredible trailblazer for BQH. You are the embodiment of proving that you can do this work and help people without physically having to see their body. And I've known that, and other practitioners have known that for a very long time. And for you to step into this role, into this work, and have that as proof, if you would, to others who may have all of their senses, including sight. It's spectacular. It's amazing. It shows how we're expanding all of the possibilities and bringing this to more people of all kinds who need it, both as practitioners and as clients.
Well, thank you. I knew when I made those videos for you that, and I think I mentioned, I know there are plenty of people who would be horrified to imagine doing this work without video. But it's like anything, we get used to what we get used to. And I remember when you and I spoke initially, you said you knew that there were people who did hypnosis over the phone. And so, I often say there's more than one right way to do just about anything. Yes. And whatever, but what I love about what you have done with this and continue to do with this is you just keep opening it up to more and more and more possibilities. And, like you said, different ways that people do sessions. I think that's fascinating. It isn't just one way, or I know I've brought in Reiki and singing bowl, but I'm sure people have done all kinds of things.
Absolutely. Yes. There's so many different ways of looking at this. And, one of my favorite stories so far is a pretty recent one from our mutual friend, Shane Robinson, over at Unbiased and On the Fence. His amazing session with the somnambulistic client that he did just on the telephone. Yeah. This was a telephone session that this fellow did. And a somnambulistic client, for those of you who listening who may not know what that is, there's a percentage of people who, when they go into deep relaxation and hypnosis, become so deep that their conscious mind steps completely aside, and it's very hardly aware, sometimes not aware at all, of the experience when it's over. It's quite a small percentage of people that traditionally and conventionally will go that deep into hypnosis, but that's the deepest you can go without going completely to sleep. And Shane had a brilliant session with incredible information that came through. And so he too is proving how really versatile and adaptable this method is. Dolores herself, and we as quantum healing practitioners have said for many years, what we have said is the SC, which is the super consciousness, or Dolores called it the subconscious, but let's just say the higher, more wise part of ourselves, is only going to bring an experience to you and your client that you both can handle and that's appropriate for that time.
Mm-hmm.
So why not try different ways of doing this? I've known some people who've actually done this sitting in a car when they've been stuck somewhere, like, two people sitting in a car, just sitting there and stuck in a traffic situation or whatever. And they were going to be there for a very long time, and they decided to do a session, and it was amazing. And yes, and some other, really wonderful ways of being creative. Humans are creative, so why not use all of our creativity in assisting others?
Well, and I remember when I was taking the course and I started getting a little hung up over some of the little details of how the quizzes were, saying that different things I said were wrong. And I got to the chapter on right brain versus left brain. And I said, wait a minute, I need to get a lot more into my right brain, which is very active. And I need to get in there and really allow it. And it started to dawn on me that really we are hypnotized far more of the time than maybe most of us realize. And to trust that the team or the guides or whoever, whatever, are going to lead the way in this process. And yeah, I mean, they really do. I know for me, when I did my first session, the thing was, I really had to get my ego out of the way. I had done hypnosis, but it had been a long time, but I still was like, oh, but I want to make sure it's right, oh, come on, but the teams really do, or whoever it is, whatever it is, the higher self, all of the above, really do help to make this happen. They want us to do the work.
Absolutely.
They want us to become conscious.
Absolutely, yes. And I think what's happening too is they want our conscious mind to integrate with this higher aspect of ourselves. We have separated it for a very, very long time. And my concept of this whole enlightening and ascension time in history is that, we're bringing our conscious mind to that. We don't have to die. We don't have to ascend in a light body. We can do some of this while we are embodied. And while we are embodied, we need to take our conscious mind with us. And we still have free will, and that's the realm of the conscious mind. So there's some, we're working on this. All of us are working on this. One of the reasons I think, I've evaluated my own self doing this work. One of the reasons I think I've taken to it so well is, of course, I'm an artist and photographer. So my right brain, I have a great imagination, but I also have an incredible analytical side, so much so that sometimes in some meetings and classes with Dolores would make a pronouncement, and I'd go, but wait a second. And I would ask a very logical, very left brain question. And I still remember this, I would have people turn around, look at me, and kind of give me the side eye, right? Like, you're questioning the the queen up there. And I'm like, that didn't make any sense. And I think that's one of the reasons Dolores kept me around. I jumped back and forth between those two realms pretty much, right? And some people who are only right brain focused, they may be too fluffy or too woo-woo for a lot of us. As a matter of fact, even reading some contemporary things right now about energies and different experiences, it can get very fluffy for me very quickly. I'm really not that focused on it. I love the balance. For me, the thing that particularly still resonates is the healing portion of it, because having my session with Dolores did resolve my chronic pain issues.
Oh, fascinating.
But not immediately. And I learned so much. I sat up from that class, sitting up. I was like, okay, I'm going to sit up, and I'm not going to have any pain. And you know what? No, I had pain, and I actually remembered everything too. And she quizzed me. She was like, "Now, what do you remember?" I'm like, here's where I tested her already, Debbie. Do you know I sat up from that regression? And she said, "Well, Candace, what do you remember?" And I looked up at her and went, "I remember everything." And she said, this was not what she wanted to hear. She said, I bet you don't remember everything you think you do. And you know what I said? Test me. I mean, that's how salty I was. But I think that's why we got along very well, because she could be very strong herself. But I remembered every bit of my session. My conscious mind was along for the ride for the entire thing. And although my higher self did come in and did provide the healing, when I sat up, it had not manifested at all. And I was very confused about this. But what I found happened to me, and this is what happens with a lot of clients, as I began to follow my new path, which was one of the reasons I had the chronic pain. It was my higher self going, hey, you're not doing the right thing. Hey, poking me in all these different areas. And once I started doing this, what I'm doing right now here with you, with BQH and all of that just faded away. Mm-hmm. It was my higher self trying to get my attention. And the left side thing was very significant as well, but that's detailed, too many details to get into in this short time that we have together today. But it was one of the first things she said in the class that I just was amazed. She was talking about how the left and the right side of the bodies give us different information, and they come from different areas of our experience as souls.
So I know that a lot of people think they can't be hypnotized, and I know that's something you talk about in the course. And I know this is really all inclusive, and it's about possibility thinking. And I think you really want people to know, we all want people to know that, really possibility, it's not the old classic idea of hypnosis.
No, it's really not. And it's something that I have to answer this question and head this issue on every single day of my life, both as a supporter of other practitioners, as a practitioner myself, as people coming to see me or to talk to me, other clients who are like, she couldn't hypnotize me. Well, the first thing is, you have to reframe that, because all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. Mm-hmm. And the easiest way to describe what we are even talking about here, the easiest way is just to call it a daydream. And what happens is you decide to get very relaxed and have a daydream and speak while having the assistance of a facilitator or a practitioner. And that assistance helps you explore your daydream a little more deeply. Where we come into a problem is, yes, the definition of hypnosis, because some people still think the idea is you come to somebody for a session, you lay down in bed, you go to sleep, you wake up, your problems are solved. And it does not work that way at all. Mm-hmm. And we have to get past that mentality. And look at that mentality. It's very much the allopathic, I'm sick, so I'm going to go to a doctor and he fixes me thing. Mm-hmm. We have to get past that. This is information, depth, power, healing from within. It's up to the client. Here's the kicker. The client absolutely must use the language of the higher self, which is their imagination. Right. You must access your imagination to do this work. And here's the problem with that. Most of us have been told from the time we entered school and began toddling around to stop making things up, to get our head out of the clouds, that it's only our imagination, to discount all of that. We have spent decades, many of us, mm-hmm. being trained to do the exact opposite. Mm-hmm. And the exact opposite, why? Well, we are better cubicle workers if we sit in our cube and do our work without letting the imagination come in and muck any of that up. Mm-hmm. So this is a program deeply embedded in humanity. And look, I know that program still runs in me. Even with everything I do every day, when I have a session, I've got my little program going, are you kidding me? You're just making this up.
Oh, yeah.
I still have it. Uh-huh. And the thing is you just say, that's okay. You're making it up. You're making everything up. You're making your life up, excuse mm-hmm. me very much. And God made you up. It's all made up.
Right. Perfect. I love it. Did Dolores ever have a session? Did she ever allow herself?
Such a great question. I hung out with the family for quite a while before feeling like I had enough bravery to ask, because I wanted to know. And I mean, it was years before I finally did ask. And the answer I got surprised me. Dolores actually said, we don't need to have sessions anymore. And I was really shocked at this. I was very, very shocked at this. She does mention in interviews and some other times, she does mention having some sessions of hers out there, not very many. She certainly wasn't a session junkie. She actually had a real concern that people might take this work too lightly by having a lot of sessions. Mm-hmm. And when she spoke of her own sessions, she would talk very much about one in particular where she was in the Library of Alexandria when it burned and trying to save the scrolls. And interestingly enough, that scene has shown up in sessions of mine with clients of mine when and I don't, whether or not they heard that interview or knew about that, I don't know, but it's shown up more than once right here in the studio where I'm sitting, where people will remember, and they will see themselves in the fire. They will see Dolores in the fire. And I've even had a couple of them saying, and you're there too, part of the scrolls. So part of the information and all of the knowledge, Dolores always called herself the seeker of lost knowledge.
Mm-hmm. What are you seeing out there as pricing for sessions? Is there a range? Is there?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And some practitioners will ask us, well, what should we charge? And first off, we never get into that business ever. Right. Because there are people out there who never charge anything. And there are people out there who charge way more than I do. Mm-hmm. This depends on your goals, your overhead, your, the other part of your practice. Some people do a lot of barter. There's a lot of people who are still practicing, who are doing sessions for free. Mm-hmm. If cost is an issue for you, there are many people doing this work for free. Normally, typically, they are just learning, so they're getting practice. But what I want to tell anybody who's looking for a free session is that the most important thing isn't if they've done 10,000 sessions, 1,000 sessions, or 10 sessions. It's what's in their heart, and it's what's in your heart. And if you are comfortable with that practitioner, comfortable letting go and having that daydream. I've been in many, many, many courses, BQH, and many even, QHHT courses when I was in Arkansas with Dolores, where wide-eyed students would come down from their practice session, their very first session. Extraordinary healings going on. This has to do with belief systems, energy, how much, again, you trust the person, how relaxed you are. All of that can happen with somebody doing their very first session. But it's important for you as a client, once again, to trust yourself as you're going into this. Trust yourself, trust your practitioner. How many letters they have after their name, how many years they've been doing this, not as important as the rapport that you have with your practitioner.
That rapport, yep, I agree. Yeah, I had some people asking me for free sessions in the forum, and they were like, I want it today, and I will do free sessions, but I'm going to treat any session I do the same, whether it's free or they give me money. I want time with that person. I want rapport building to see if it's a good fit, whether it's free or not. That's in your course, time with people to find out why they want a session and what they expect and all those kinds of things. That's very important. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. So what else can we look for in this regression week that you want to maybe let others know in case they hear this first?
Oh, super. Well, We had a lot of people send in videos asking similar questions. So you will see little snippets of people. Debbie herself will be answering some questions. We're going to be running some of those, and then they're going to be going to different YouTube channels, including ours. We're also having some live regressions. We will be doing some with, with Allison Coe, with Pamela Erlin, with Ron and Michael of Transformotion.
Yep.
And I'll be doing one myself with Greg Prescott in 5D.com. And I think I'm forgetting somebody. Angie Sanchez is going to be doing one. Beautiful Angie Sanchez from California is going to be doing one. And then we are also presenting 2 round table shows where we bring together a collection of practitioners and kind of have a conversation between ourselves, and then we will present to the public so they can listen in on what that's like. Basically kind of bringing the forum to the public, the kind of things we talk about between practitioners when we get together and assist each other.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you so much for doing this. This is going to be out there in a variety of places and formats. And so thank you so much. I'm honored to have spent this time.
Oh, the honor is all mine too, Debbie. You're a beautiful, beautiful being, and I've enjoyed every moment here with you. Thank you so much for your support, and I hope everyone enjoys Worldwide Regression Week 2019. It's so big in 2019. I wonder what 2020 is going to bring.
Oh, man. That's exciting to imagine already. Wow.